Amaka's trouble was never over. It was just a temporary break from the painful trauma she had experienced. Emeka was never dead, and as soon as she learned he was still alive, she wanted the world to end and let her rest in peace. That day, Amaka was with her friend and sister-in-law, Bisi, sharing her labor experience with her when a call came in. Bisi picked up the call, and it was an old friend from Ghana who learned Amaka got married to Bisi's brother. Amaka, Bisi, and Mercy Appiah attended the University of Lagos together and both studied data science. Hello Bisi, I learned recently that Amaka is now your brother's wife. I was happy for her and your brother too, especially when I learned she recently gave birth to a baby boy. But Bisi, you need to talk to them to be extremely careful. Emeka was never dead. Bisi screamed upon hearing this, but her friend told her to calm down to be able to help her brother and her friend, Amaka. Else she would end the call if she didn't stop the drama. Bisi, it seems you guys don't know the demon you all are playing with. Emeka wasn't dead. I heard he was rescued by his boys and brought to Ghana, after which he was later taken to the United Kingdom, where several surgeries were performed for him, and he survived the gunshots. Emeka has been in Ghana for 2 years now, living on a low profile but extremely rich. He is one of the richest dudes in town. I only called because I learned from one of his girlfriends that's close to me that he had an assignment to be carried out in Nigeria and would only stay for 1 week before returning to Ghana. Emeka is coming back to take out Amaka and your brother. He doesn't forgive. Tell them to get prepared or apply for police escort as soon as possible. Mercy Appiah said and ended the call. Because the phone was on speaker, Amaka heard every single word. Right there, she wanted the world to just end and let her die and rest in peace. Amaka thought her battle was over, but it seems she was just starting. She sat, panicking as tears dropped from her cheek. Bisi quickly collected her baby from her and told her to be strong to fight the battle ahead. Amaka, you've faced the demon himself, and you defeated him. You need to believe you will still defeat him again if he chooses to wake up from his grave. As if the fire in her was ignited, Amaka wiped her tears and said, Emeka, you were in the past. I had killed you. You are dead as far as I am concerned. I will defeat you again if you choose not to rest in hell where you truly belong. Amaka called her husband, Tunde, to close early and come to the house for an emergency issue to sort out. The call was unusual. Tunde was worried, and he quickly finished with the client he was attending to. He had to postpone the meeting he had and went straight home. When he entered the house, he met his wife, Amaka, and his sister, Bisi, in the living room, and the atmosphere showed there was danger. There was no usual hug and kiss he usually got from his wife anytime he returned home. Amaka wasted no time, and she went straight to the issue at hand. My love, it appears we have a bigger trouble to deal with. Emeka was never dead. A schoolmate at the university called Bisi this afternoon to give her the information. As Tunde listened to the call record, he was shocked and wondered what went wrong for such a monster to still be living. See, I had handled a similar case as this, and we must deploy every means possible to deal with this devil. We must also know that his mission at this point is to kill all of us and make sure he doesn't leave any trace, as no one knows he is still alive. The following day, Tunde called his trusted police detective, who always helps uncover secret deals in the police department. When DSP Okoro called on WhatsApp a few hours later, Tunde was surprised at the information he got. My friend, after my background investigation on the officers that handled the case, the information you gave me is correct. Emeka was never dead. The officers in charge of the case helped him escape. A friend to one of the officers confided in me that when they went to Emeka's house on the day of the incident, they discovered he was still alive. They saw it as an opportunity to make money. They took him to a private hospital and connived with the head of the mortuary unit and exchanged Emeka with a highway robber they killed that day. You know this issue happened 4 years ago, and Emeka's family hasn't gotten the clearance for his burial right. We can make an arrangement and visit the mortuary to confirm this before we take the case up and escalate it. Tunde agreed to the advice but pleaded with DSP Okoro to help him facilitate the approval of 4 armed police escorts for their security, as their lives are now in danger. He promised to visit his office the following day to submit the application and help facilitate the approval as it has become urgent. When Tunde ended the call, Bisi, who is still around, blamed the federal government for rejecting the establishment of private security organizations that would have made it easy for private individuals to seek their services for protection. As big as this country is, we only rely on the services of the federal police force. Not even the state police are allowed. We can do better as the so-called giant of Africa. Amaka said with anger. Enough of all these unnecessary lamentations. This is not our problem. Can't you guys get it? Our lives are at risk. Someone dangerous is after our lives. He might even be coming with his gangs, and you guys are here talking about private security and state police. Tunde barely finished his statement when they heard a loud gunshot that broke through the entrance door. Like a ghost, Emeka appeared carrying an AK-47. I am Emeka, the cat with 9 lives. Nobody can kill me, not even a woman I had violated to my taste and made to lick my wounds. Amaka, you are too small to dare me. You are too small to end my chapter on this earth. Look at me. Don't hide behind this rat you called your husband. I am not dead. You are not seeing a ghost but the real me. I will teach you a lesson. I will show you why they nicknamed me Cat. Not minding his gun, Bisi stood up to the challenge. You are a demon and deserve to rot in hell. You can't come here and torment this family after all you did to her. I dare you to do your worst, and you wouldn't live to tell the story, Bisi said with confidence. It seems you all are prepared for this day, you little demon. I know you, Bisi. I know you back in university days. You were lucky you escaped my traps, but today, you will not live to challenge me again. Emeka cocked his gun, pulled the trigger, and shot Bisi in her chest. She fell instantly and died right in front of his brother and Amaka. I didn't come here to joke. This is a message to you and your husband. I prepared for this day for the last 3 years, 3 years of agony and pain. I am here to take revenge. If you cooperate, you will only help me to make your deaths peaceful. Emeka ordered Tunde to kneel down while he called Amaka to strip naked before him. I wouldn't mess with you today, but look at yourself. Is it not because of these things you called private parts that made you to do what you did? As Emeka moved to put his gun in Amaka's private part, he heard a loud gunshot from the gate. The domestic staff who was watching from the kitchen door secretly called the police. But before the police entered, Emeka had escaped through the fence. He escaped justice again, but Bisi was dead. He left with a large mark on Tunde and Amaka's life. The police inspector that led the team of policemen assured Tunde and Amaka that they will go after Emeka and make sure he is arrested and faces the wrath of the law. Bisi was taken to the nearby clinic, where she was confirmed dead by the doctor on duty. Her corpse was deposited at the morgue, and the police launched a manhunt for Emeka. The following day, the police retrieved the CCTV footage of how Emeka busted into the house and how he killed Bisi. The gateman at Tunde's house was arrested after the CCTV footage revealed he compromised and allowed Emeka to enter the house when he gave him money without informing his boss. The news of the reappearance of Emeka quickly became a national discussion on the television stations and radios. The police placed a 10 million naira bounty on Emeka's head, and many people offered to find his whereabouts and inform the police. Tunde was down. He couldn't believe his only sister, Bisi, was gone. Amaka has been crying since the incident and blamed herself for all that happened. My love, please forgive me for ruining your life and causing the death of your only sister. You trained her after the death of your parents. I know she's everything to you as the only sibling you have. This is too much for me to bear. Forgive me if you wake up tomorrow and don't find me alive. Amaka said, crying. My love, you don't need to blame yourself. I am more than pained for the death of my sister, but we must not give up on each other. If we do, then the devil has won. That's what Emeka wants, but we will stand together, shoulder to shoulder, and fight him till the end and defeat him. Emeka said and retired to bed. Amaka fights hard to be strong, but she's losing her mind any time she sees Bisi's fiancé and whenever she remembers how Bisi convinced her to marry Tunde, her only brother. Amaka had thought of killing herself severally because of the guilt, She thought if she hadn't come into their lives, BC wouldn't have been killed by Emeka. But the thought of David, her son, always stops her from ending it all. But Amaka concluded she wouldn't submit like a chicken. She resolved BC needs to get justice and be ready to fight Emeka to pay for his crimes. When Emeka jumped the fence, he spent the night in a nearby hotel and left before dawn. But he couldn't take his car from Tunde Street where he parked before he attacked them. The police intensified the search for Emeka, and Tunde also engaged the service of a group of local vigilante in search of him. Tunde's application for 4 police escorts at their house was approved, taking every measure to prevent any further attack from Emeka. The police got a hint of where Emeka was hiding in a small hotel mainly used by travelers. He disguised himself and had been in the hotel for 3 days. At night, the police were prepared with 4 armored tanks and 40 heavily armed police officers. When the police reached the hotel, they quickly surrounded the entire building and used a microphone to call Emeka to surrender himself to the police. When Emeka looked through the window and saw the armored tanks and the number of policemen at the building, he decided to surrender himself to the police and rather plan his escape from the poorest prison in the country. He came out with his gun. His hands were up to show he had surrendered. He was arrested, disarmed, and taken into custody. When the journalists asked him how he survived the initial gunshots and why he chose to return back and attack Amaka's family, he said he was not the one to be silenced by a woman and only came back to prove a point and take revenge. He said he didn't regret his action, and BC was never part of his plan. He only came for Amaka and her husband. But BC dared him to do his worst, and he couldn't have held back and only used her to send a message to Amaka and her husband. Emeka also alleged that BC's first son, David, is his son because he did it raw with Amaka on the day he took advantage of her. It's obvious this man has lost his senses. How can you be the father of the boy when Amaka gave birth to him 3 years after you violated her? He deserves to rot in jail, one of the people standing said. Police didn't waste time. Emeka was arraigned at the Federal High Court in Lagos. He admitted to all the charges against him and pleaded guilty. Emeka was only waiting to be taken to prison and find his way out. After listening to the arguments, and Emeka pleading guilty, the presiding judge sentenced him to life imprisonment. After the judgment, he was taken to the maximum prison, and the prison officers allocated his space in the room to him. His prison life started from there. Tunde chose to be strong. The date for BC's burial in the village was announced. Tunde had advised his wife and pleaded with her to be strong at the burial. The necessary arrangements were made, and BC's body was taken to the village. At the burial, the villagers cursed her killer. As people continued to cry, Amaka felt the pang of guilt again, and he collapsed to the ground and was quickly taken from the graveyard. Amaka couldn't witness her best friend and sister-in-law, who only wanted the best for her, being buried. Kunal later told them to bury BC, as he can't face her only sister being buried. BC was buried amidst tears. In the prison, Emeka quickly gained ground. He sold the diamond ring and necklace he took to the prison for 10 million naira through the help of a corrupt prison officer who arranged the buyer and took 5% from it. With the money inside the prison, it was easier for him to gain respect and followers. Emeka meticulously planned his escape. He engaged some prisoners who believed in the idea, and they began digging a tunnel inside one of the rooms. They spent 1 year digging the underground tunnel that led to the outside gate of the prison. That night, Emeka led the operation. They packed their belongings and left one after the other. 10 prisoners escaped without a trace. The prison officers learned about the escape when they checked them on their spaces in the morning. Again, Emeka proved to be a cat with 9 lives. He evaded justice again and left no trace. Emeka's escape from the prison became a national embarrassment, and 2 weeks were given to the security officials to rearrest Emeka and return him to prison. Emeka was arrested at the border by the border security officers while trying to escape to Ghana. He was taken into custody, and the police reviewed his case and presented him in court. At the court, the judge wasted no time in granting the reviewed charges against Emeka. The police had argued that Emeka is a threat to national security, and his presence in any prison in the country makes it a very dangerous place. The judge granted the prayer seeking for a death by firing squad. 2 days later, in a televised program, Emeka was presented before the public, made to apologize to Amaka. He bluntly refused and maintained his stand of not bowing down for any woman. In the presence of Amaka, Emeka was tied to a drum and killed by the firing squad. That was the end of a high-profile criminal who proved on different occasions to be very smart and intelligent, but unfortunately, he channeled it in the wrong direction. Emeka was killed, he was gone, and Amaka's problems were finally over. It was supposed to be a moment of victory for Amaka and her husband, but Bisi's absence made it a sad day. They hugged each other for the first time in a long while, for fulfilling the dream of making sure Emeka is dead and Bisi gets justice. Instead of celebrating their wedding anniversary every January 15th, they chose to remember Bisi, who was killed because of them on the same day. They will travel to the village, visit Bisi's grave with some villagers, and offer prayers for her soul to rest in peace. Amaka and Tunde launched the Bisi Foundation, through which they reached out to the less privileged. Every year, the foundation paid school fees of less privileged families, sponsored critical surgeries, and provided food for the poor families in the village. Bisi's name never died as the foundation became a household name in the village of Udemy where they hail from. Amaka and Tunde believed charity should begin at home. They decided to start from their village and help as many poor as possible. Bisi may not be alive again, but her name never dies. Bisi, please forgive us. We are deeply sorry you had to die for us to live. You connected me with your brother. You did everything possible for our marriage to happen. Unfortunately, you are not here to see how far we have grown. We now have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. We are now 15 years into marriage, but we never forget you for a single day. We will continue to commit more funds to your foundation, and we hope the reward of this charitable work comes to you in your grave. I and your brother, my dear husband, love you, and the children love you too. Thanks for sacrificing your life for us to live. We fought for you, and we won at last. We are now free from the troubles. Emeka is now dead. You will not see him in heaven because he is resting in hell where he belongs. Amaka said during their 15th wedding anniversary, which they marked at Bisi's grave in the village. Amaka and Kunal continue to raise a responsible family to the admiration of the people, and their lives become a reference for many people fighting secret and open battles. They continued to raise a family envied by others, though the scars of their past never leave, but they are grateful for standing by each other and fighting together to defeat their greatest threat. If you like this story, comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories. I would like to read your views about this story.